We are on the record for hearings on the matters listed in the North Dakota Industrial Commission hearing docket for August 29th. I'm David Garner, hearing examiner for these hearings. We are at the hearing room for the Department of Mineral Resources, Oil and Gas Division, and it is 9:01 a.m. On the docket, the following matters will be continued or dismissed. Case number 31049 continued. Case number 3144 dismissed. Case number 31145 dismissed. Case number 31146 dismissed. Case number 31147 dismissed. Case number 31149 continued. Case number 29868 continued. Case number 30854 dismissed. Case number 31154 continued. The administrative docket starts on page 8 with case number 31160 and goes through case number 31182. These cases will be heard in the next room with Michael Zisch. Audio recordings of the cases in the administrative docket will be placed on the oil and gas website by the end of the week. If you wish to appear in one of the matters on the administrative docket, please appear in the next room. If there is opposition to the matter, will be brought back into this hearing room to be heard, and your statements and evidence will be taken. We will begin with moving to case number 31138, which is an application of Hunt Oil Company for an order creating two 1920-acre drilling units comprised of sections 112 and 13 and sections 211 and 14, Township 159 North, Range 90 West, Burke County, North Dakota, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well within each drilling unit and such other and further relief. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota. Excuse me. Appearing in this case, 31138 on behalf of Hunt Oil Company, and we'll be calling 3 witnesses in this matter. I assume you have a list of the witnesses, Mr. Examiner.
I do.
And the first witness will be Chelsea Cherry, who's on the telephone.
Ms. Cherry.
Chelsea, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Chelsea, please state your name for the record.
Chelsea Cherry,
And Chelsea, by whom are you employed?
Hunt Oil Company,
In what capacity?
senior staff landman.
And in that capacity, Chelsea, have you had an opportunity to testify before the commission previously?
I have.
And you've had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
We'd offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Chelsea, I know you're going to be handling a number of cases this morning, but let's start with case 31138. And do you have a packet of exhibits in front of you for that case?
I do.
And I've distributed a packet to the commission staff. What I'd like you to do is skip the cover page and turn to what has been marked as Exhibit 1 and identify Exhibit 1 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Okay. Yes. Exhibit 1 is a regional location map showing the drilling units in the southeast corner of Burke County.
All right, and then let's go to the next exhibit, Exhibit 2. Can you tell me what Exhibit 2 is?
Yes. Exhibit 2 is our proposed 1920-acre drilling units in Burke County, consisting of 2, 11, and 14. And our working interest in that unit is 89%, and 1, 12, and 13. And our working interest in that drilling unit is 79%.
Okay, and the reason Hunt is requesting drilling units is that there is no current spacing for the Bakken pool in this area. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I believe that's all the questions I have for the land witness.
Any questions from staff? Ms. Watkins,
Yes.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Kathleen, would you state your name for the record, please?
Kathleen Watkins,
And Kathleen, by whom are you employed?
Hunt Oil Company,
In what capacity?
as a geologist.
And in that capacity, have you had an opportunity to testify before the commission previously?
I
And have your qualifications been accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Okay, Kathleen, let's continue along with the exhibits here. Let's go to Exhibit 3 in the packet. Can you identify Exhibit 3 and then briefly discuss what's contained on that exhibit?
Exhibit 3 is a structure map of the top of the Bakken Formation. Our proposed drilling units are shaded in pink. The middle Bakken horizontal wells are highlighted in blue. Three Forks horizontal wells are highlighted in red. And our type log for the drilling units is circled in red.
Okay, help me out here. Where you say circle, okay, it's up to the north, actually to the west of your proposed drilling units, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go to Exhibit 4 in the packet. Tell us what that is.
Exhibit 4 is a type log for the proposed drilling unit. In track 1 is gamma ray, track 2 are porosity curves, and track 3 are resistivity curves. The top of the Bakken Formation and the top of the Three Forks Formation are highlighted in red, and the middle Bakken Reservoir and the Three Forks First Bench Reservoir are highlighted in yellow.
And is the primary target the middle Bakken, or is it middle Bakken, or is it Three Forks, or is it both?
Middle Bakken.
Okay. No further questions for the geologic witness.
Any questions from the staff? Mr. Sulak,
Yes, sir.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Ray, as the previous witnesses have done, will you state your full name for the record?
Yes, I'm Raymond Michael Shulock,
And Ray, by whom are you employed?
Hunt Oil Company.
In what capacity?
I'm an engineer.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Ray, let's go to the next exhibit in the packet. It's been previously marked as Exhibit 5. Can you identify Exhibit 5 and then briefly discuss what's contained on that exhibit?
Yes, this is the development that we're proposing for a 1920-acre drilling unit. So the proposed units are in a dashed red line. The existing ones are in gray, and the orange-red lines show the proposed wells in each unit.
Okay, are these locations at this point in time tentative?
Yes, that's correct.
Hunt hasn't done any surveys to determine where the surface location will be and where the bottom hole location will be, is that correct?
That's correct.
But generally speaking, you're going to drill them in the east half of 211 and 14 and 112 and 13, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, let's go on to the next exhibit, Ray. Exhibit 6. Please identify and discuss that exhibit.
Yeah, this is our typical wellbore schematic. So just showing how we generally plan to complete the well, 150-foot stages, and the size of the hole and casing we'll be putting in.
Okay, is this kind of the standard configuration of a downhole that Hunt utilizes in horizontal Bakken wells in this area?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
All right, let's go on to the next exhibit, Exhibit 7. A lot of information on that exhibit. Ray, you don't have to hit every point, but why don't you discuss the more pertinent information on Exhibit 7?
Okay, yeah, so we're showing the estimated reservoir properties, reserves, economics. So some key numbers to take away from here. EUR, so 599 MBO per well is what we're forecasting. And at the end of the day, present value after accounting for drilling completion costs should be about $5.9 million in PV10.
So clearly an economic venture, is that a fair statement?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And then Exhibit 8, is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of matters?
Yes, that's correct.
And then let's go to Exhibit 9. I know you've already testified that the locations are tentative in the sense on where the pad will be, where the bottom hole location will be, but generally you want them in the east half of each of the proposed drilling units. Can you tell me what the purpose of Exhibit 9 is?
Yeah, so since we are still evaluating our options for surface hole locations, just wanted to give the commission an idea of the topography and where the water is, and to show that there are options there for us. And generally speaking, we're looking at creating corridors of development that have minimal impact on the surface, and where we can, we want to combine these wells into single pads.
And I know at this point in time, Ray, you've only showed development of one well in each of the proposed drilling units. If the wells are successful, at the time the commission would set a temporary spacing hearing. At that time, Hunt might propose some additional wells based on the success of the two wells that you had planned. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's our plan.
Ray, in your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste?
Yes.
Will it protect relative rights and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
Mr. Examiner, I don't have any further questions. I'd offer Exhibits 1 through 9.
The exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Ray, what's your anticipated spud date for these wells?
So for these, we're currently piloting wells in the area, and those results will be in at the end of the year. And then we have room in our schedule starting in Q3 of next year to start drilling additional wells here. So, as early as Q3 of next year, depending on the pilot results.
Thank you.
Ray, on Exhibit 5, you depict two horizontal wells. And on Exhibit 9, you show us the topography and hydrography. It looks like you're going to probably drill the wells from the north side.
Yeah, that does appear to have the most room for us, and we would be able to most likely create the best infrastructure corridor coming from that way. So that's what we're leading with. But there's room to the south there as well if we do get into some issues with environmental or regulatory that we need to pivot. We'd be looking at that as well.
So you said you wanted to minimize your footprint. Why wouldn't you drill these two wells, one in the west half of 1 and 12 and 13, and one in the east half, 2, 11, and 14, and from the same pad?
So really looking towards increased spacing as the next step. We're planning towards that, but certainly would be open, in the case that we do only have one well per drilling unit approved, would adjust, I believe.
And how far off the line are these wells proposed?
At least 550 feet.
Are you familiar with the Commission's 1220 policy?
Yes. Now that you mention that does come to mind. So yeah, we would certainly honor that.
So there'll be at least 1220 from the line?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And on Exhibit 7, you have a water saturation of 46%. I looked at a couple wells in the area, and they produce a lot of water, quite a bit, many times more than oil. Where does this water saturation come from?
Yeah, so the water saturation is from corn log, but we believe in some cases where you see that increased water cut, that it actually was coming from outside of the Bakken pool.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes our hearing for case number 31138. Case number 31139, application of Hunt Oil Company for an order for the Clearwater Bakken Pool, Burke County, North Dakota, to create and establish a 1920-acre space unit comprised of sections 23, 26, and 35, Township 159 North, Range 90 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 4 wells on said proposed 1920-acre space unit and such further release if appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, excuse me, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this matter, case number 31139 on behalf of Hunt Oil Company. We're going to continue with the same 3 witnesses as we had in the previous case. We'll be recalling Chelsea Cherry.
And just a reminder, they're still under oath.
Chelsea, let's turn to the packet of exhibits for this case, 31139. And as you did in the previous matter, let's have you, or excuse me, would you please identify and discuss what's contained on Exhibit 1?
Yes, Exhibit 1 shows a regional location map of the Clearwater field in Burke and Montreal County.
And Exhibit 2?
Exhibit 2 shows our proposed 1920-acre spacing unit consisting of 23, 26, and 35 of 159.90. Hence, working interest in that unit is 51%.
And subsequent witnesses are going to get into drilling that's already taken place in the area, but there are no wells in 23, 26, and 35 at this time. Is that correct?
That is correct.
No further questions for the land witness.
Any questions from the staff?
Have you gotten with any other working interest owners and they're okay with this spacing as well?
Yes. Lime Rock is area, and they plan to space their unit to the west the same way. But as for these sections that we're spacing, there are not any other working interest owners at this time, besides unleased mineral owners.
Okay, thank you, Chelsea.
You can proceed.
Recall Kathleen Watkins.
Right here.
Yeah, go, proceed.
Oh, did you want to remind her she's still under oath? Or?
Oh, I did a general one.
Okay, great, thanks, Mr. Examiner, I missed that. So, Kathleen, let's go to Exhibit 4. Can you tell me excuse me, I jumped ahead too far, apologize for that. Exhibit 3, can you identify Exhibit 3 and discuss what's contained upon it?
Exhibit 3 is a structure map of the top of the Bakken Formation. Our proposed 1920 units are highlighted in pink. Middle Bakken horizontal wells are highlighted in blue. Three Forks wells are highlighted in red. And the type log cross-section for Clearwater Field is shown in a red line on this map.
All right, let's go to that cross-section, Exhibit 4. Can you briefly discuss what's contained on Exhibit 4?
Exhibit 4 is a type log cross-section for the Clearwater Field. The Clearwater Bakken Pool is defined as 50 feet above the top of the Bakken Formation to above the top of the Burke Bear Formation. For both of these wells, in Track 1 is gamma rays, Track 2 are porosity curves, and Track 3 are resistivity curves. The top of the Bakken Formation and the top of the Three Forks Formation are highlighted in red, and the Middle Bakken Reservoir and the Three Forks Reservoirs are highlighted in yellow, and the top of the Bird Bear Formation is shown by the black dash lines in the Halverson well.
And once again, the target zone is?
Middle Bakken.
Okay. No further questions of this witness?
Any questions from the staff?
Is that in track on Exhibit 4? Is that measured depth or true vertical depth?
True vertical depth.
Okay, thank you.
You can proceed.
Okay. We will recall Ray Sulak. Ray, let's go to Exhibit 5. Can you tell us what Exhibit 5 is?
That's our proposed development for the 1920-acre unit. Similar as before, we're showing the unit outline in red dash line. and our proposed wells in red.
And tentative locations at this point in time, is that correct?
Correct.
And let's go to Exhibit 6.
Yes, this is our typical wellbore schematic. Now we typically complete and drill these wells.
And number of frac stages you're anticipating?
About 100, so at 150 foot per stage.
All right, let's go to Exhibit 7. Once again, if you can summarize Exhibit 7.
Yes, so the estimated reservoir properties, reserves, and resulting economics, and same UR here, 599 MBO, and the present value, $5.9 million.
Okay, and Exhibit 8, is Exhibit 8 a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of matters?
Yes.
And then let's go to Exhibit 9, identify Exhibit 9, and just briefly discuss the purpose of Exhibit 9.
Yeah, so this is the topography and the hydrology of the area, the surface. So as we're still evaluating, how best to surface for infrastructure and getting as many wells per pad as possible. Just wanted to show that there are options on the surface that we're looking at.
In your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect correlative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells? No further questions, offer the exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Ray, what would your anticipated spud date be?
This is similar to before, around the same timeline, so Q3 of next year. Pending the results of our first 2 pilot wells, we'll be ready to develop here with additional wells.
Would you be batch drilling these?
Yeah, so ideally we'd have all 4 wells on the same pad and batch drill all 4. At the very least, we'll have 2 wells per pad and batch drill that way.
And what's driving going for the complete development here with 4 wells, where the acreage to the north just had 1 well per DSU?
So, yeah, requesting the drilling unit on the other 2. So my understanding is that first we have to request a single well, but ultimately we're driving towards 4 wells there as well.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes our hearing for case number 31139. Case number 31140, application of Hunt Oil Company for an order for the Alexandria Bakken Pool, Divide County, North Dakota, as follows. 1, create and establish 3 overlapping 1920 acre spacing units comprised of sections 6, 7, and 18, sections 20, 29, and 32, sections 21, 28, and 33, Township 161 North, Range 100 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 4 wells on each proposed overlapping 1920 acre spacing unit. And 2, create and establish an overlapping 1920 acre spacing unit comprised of sections 22, 27, and 34, Township 161 North, Range 100 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 2 wells on said proposed overlapping 1920 acre spacing unit, and such further relief as appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing this matter, case 31140, on behalf of Hunt Oil Company. We're going to have a different land witness in this matter who has not been sworn at this point in time, Mr. Matt Bodley.
Mr. Bodley,
Yes.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Matt, state your full name for the record, please.
Matt Bodley,
And Matt, by whom are you employed?
Hunt Oil Company,
In what capacity?
land manager.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Matt, let's go to the packet of exhibits for case 31140. Let's turn to Exhibit 1. Tell us what Exhibit 1 is.
Exhibit 1 is a regional location map showing Alexandria Field in Divide County.
And Exhibit 2.
Exhibit 2 is the proposed 1920 acre spacing unit in Alexandria Field, showing Hunt's existing 1280 acre units outlined in black, the overlapping 1920s outlined in dashed red, with Hunt's working interest in both. Hunt's working interest in the overlapping unit of 6, 7, and 18 would be 89.6%. Hunt's working interest in 20, 29, and 32 would be 84.7%. Hunt's working interest in 28, 21, and 33 would be 82.2%. And Hunt's working interest in 22, 27, and 34 would be 79%.
Can you give us the working interest ownership again in 20, 29, and 32? I think you said something different than what's on the exhibit.
My apologies. Hunt's working interest in 20, 29, and 32 would be 84.7%.
My exhibit says 89.9%. What does the commission have on theirs? Is 88.9? I almost have an old exhibit, so. Okay, no further questions for this witness.
Any questions from staff?
Matt, if this application is approved, what's gonna happen to sections 15, section 16, and section 19?
So we are working, or at least plan to have at least an agreement or some sort of joint development with the offsetting operators of 310, 49, 58, and 30 and 31, so that 15, 16, 17, and 19 would not be left behind. But that is part of our plan. Would make sense for us to develop those units as 1920s as well.
So what assurance does the commission have that that's gonna happen?
We could provide supplemental affidavits or whatever a recommendation is from the NDIC to ensure that the commission is comfortable with allowing the spacing that we're applying for.
So that the percentages that you didn't cover, the 6 and 7, 85%, looks like, is that for the 1280s that exist?
Yeah, the working interest labeled in black is the existing working, so and 6 and 7, 85% Hunt's working interest is what we own in that 1280.
So are sections 5, 8, and 17 currently a stand-up 1920?
No, sir. 5 at 8 are 1280s, 4, 9 are 1280s, and 3 10s are 1280. I'm sorry. 5, 8, and 17 is a stand-up 1920. That's correct.
So what interest does Hunt have in section 15, section 16, and section 19?
I don't have that information offhand, but it would be roughly half of the working interest shown if I had to guess, but I'm happy to supply that following the hearing.
Well, if you have 97% in 15 and 22, I assume you have a pretty high interest in section 15, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, we'll need something submitted for the record to show that section 15, section 16, and section 19 are not going to be stranded as 640s.
Okay. Yeah, perhaps perhaps we could work with the other offsetting operators and space the remaining 1920s here. But that we can submit supplemental exhibits.
Mr. Borg, did you say, I heard you say 15, 16, and 19, 17 as well?
No, 17 is already in a stand-up 1920.
Oh, that's right, he just said that, I apologize. How much time are you gonna need to put that together, Matt?
A couple weeks would be a nice window for us to work with Lawrence.
Okay, thank you.
You know, Matt and Lawrence, you know, as a word of advice, I mean, when these applications come to split up 1280s, you know, we're not gonna do that without a plan for the other half of the 1280 generally, so in the future, if they could come with a more overall development plan to show how this is all gonna still fit together would be appreciated.
I understand. Seems like it's been a bit of a moving target, though, in terms of what you want, but we'll get this for you.
Okay, thank you.
You can proceed.
Okay. Go to Kathleen. Kathleen, can you turn to Exhibit 3 and tell us what Exhibit 3 is?
Exhibit 3 is a structure map of the top of the Bakken Formation. The proposed 1920 units are highlighted in pink. The middle Bakken horizontal wells are highlighted in blue, and the Three Forks horizontal wells are highlighted in red. And the type log for Alexandria Field is located to the south of those units and is circled in red.
And Exhibit 4.
Exhibit 4 is a type log for Alexandria Field. The Alexandria Bakken pool is defined as 50 feet above the top of the Bakken Formation to 100 feet below the top of the Three Forks Formation. Track 1 is gamma ray. Track 2 are porosity curves. Track 3 are resistivity curves. And the top of the Bakken Formation, top of the Three Forks are highlighted in red, and the middle Bakken Reservoir and the Three Forks Reservoir are highlighted in yellow.
No further questions.
Any questions from the staff? You can proceed.
Okay, Ray, Exhibit 5.
Yes, Exhibit 5, this shows our proposed development for these overlapping 1920 units. Outlined in red dashed lines, and we're showing our proposed wells in red. Those are tentative locations that represents the general outline that we're looking at.
Okay, and Exhibit 6.
It's a typical wellbore schematic, so that's the way that we plan to drill and complete these wells.
And Exhibit 7.
This shows the reservoir properties, reserves, and economics. 542 MBO EUR for these wells. As a value discounted 10% of $3 million.
And then Exhibit 8, is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of matters?
Yes.
And then why don't you briefly discuss what's contained on Exhibit 9?
Okay. Yeah. So we're still evaluating surface locations and how best to create surface infrastructure corridors and most wells per pad. As we're doing that, I just wanted to provide information to the NDIC on topography and the hydrology of the surface here. But there's a lot of options for us here, and we're just evaluating the most efficient way to do this with minimal impact on the surface.
Mr. Examiner, no further questions. Offer the exhibits.
They're admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Ray, what's your anticipated spud for this area?
This one is also Q3 of next year. We've got a pilot in the area with results coming online here towards the end of the year. So we'll be evaluating that in the beginning of the year next year, and have room in our schedule at the back half of the year next year.
Would you be batch drilling each of these locations?
Yes, sir.
And looking at your Exhibit 5, is this your full development plan for these spacing units?
For the 1920s shown, it is. For the 1280s, there'd be room for additional 10,000 foot wells. So if you look at section 2734, we'd be including some 10,000 foot wells there.
And how about that gap in spacing for 29, 32, 28, and 33? Would there be any 10,000 foot wells there, or is that going to be as is?
That would likely be as is in section 20.
Would there be any, depending on which side you drill it from, say from the south, would there be any turn in azimuth to try to cover some of that gap, or would it just be straight?
Yes, yeah, we would try to lean into that, probably with both well bores, and get an even spacing for that section.
Okay, thank you.
What is your planned interwell distance for, or what do you idealize interwell distance that you're going for on this, in this area?
Yeah, so 5 well spacing, so that gets you about 1,100 feet between wells.
And then I noticed that you had a couple wells that you just brought online. Do you have plans for frac protect on those, and what are they?
Yeah, so we'll typically shut the wells in. And we're looking at options for even pressuring up the wells ahead of time, but at the minimum, we make sure we've got a 5K BOP and the wells are shut in ahead of time.
Okay. And then some of the older ones, I guess I didn't check on those, but are those planned? Those are planned to continue producing when you complete these ones as well, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Ray, you mentioned that you're going to further develop the east half of sections 27 and 34. Can you supplement the record with the general plan for that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we need to keep the record open for,
Yeah, September 16.
that works. The record will be kept open in this case until September 16th. And that concludes our hearing for case number 31140. Case number 31141, application of Hunt Oil Company for an order for the Smoky Butte Bakken Pool, Divide County, North Dakota, to create and establish 4 overlapping 1920-acre spacing units comprised of sections 5, 8, and 17, sections 6, 7, and 18, sections 19, 30, and 31, and sections 20, 29, and 32, Township 160 North, Range 100 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 4 wells on each proposed overlapping 1920-acre space unit, and such further relief as appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in this matter, case 31141, on behalf of Hunt Oil Company. We'll have the same 3 witnesses in this matter as we had in the previous matter.
And just a reminder, they're still in growth.
Thank you. Matt, you want to turn to Exhibit 1, please?
Exhibit 1, regional location map showing the Smoky Butte field within Divide County.
And Exhibit 2.
Exhibit 2 are the proposed 1920-acre spacing units with the existing 1280 outlined in black, the proposed 1920s outlined in dashed red, with Hunt's working interest in the existing 1280s labeled in black, Hunt's working interest in the overlapping 1920s labeled in blue. Hunt's working interest in 6, 7, and 18 would be 82.9%. Hunt's working interest in 19, 30, and 31 would be 85.2%. Hunt's working interest in 5, 8, and 17 would be 99.2%. and Hunt's working interest in 20, 29, and 32 would be 89.1%.
No further questions.
Any questions from staff? You can proceed.
Kathleen, can you turn to Exhibit 3, please?
Yep.
Okay, as you've done previously, can you identify Exhibit 3 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it?
Exhibit 3 is a structure map at the top of Bakken Formation. The proposed 1920 units are highlighted in pink. Middle Bakken horizontal wells are highlighted in blue, and Three Forks horizontal wells are highlighted in red. The type log for the Smoky Butte field is circled in red to the west of those units.
Exhibit 4?
Exhibit 4 is a type log for Smoky Butte field. The Smoky Butte Bakken pool is defined as 50 feet above the top of the Bakken Formation to above the top of the Bird Bear Formation. And track 1 is gamma ray, track 2 are porosity curves, track 3 are resistivity curves. The top of the Bakken Formation and top of the Three Forks Formation are highlighted in red, and the middle Bakken and Three Forks reservoirs are highlighted in yellow.
No further questions.
Any questions from staff?
Is this going to be Middle Bakken target only?
Yes.
Thank you.
You can proceed.
Ray, Exhibit 5?
Yes, Exhibit 5 is our proposed development for these 1920 acre units. So you can see the outlines in dashed red and the wellbores that we're proposing in red.
And Exhibit 6?
This is our typical wellbore schematic, and how we plan to drill and complete these wells.
And Exhibit 7?
The estimated reservoir properties, reserves, and economics. So EUR 542 MBO and $3 million PV10.
And then Exhibit 8, is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of matters?
Yes.
Okay, and can you identify Exhibit 9 and explain the importance of Exhibit 9?
Exhibit 9, we're showing the topography and hydrography of the surface. So as we're evaluating surface locations and how to create minimal impact with infrastructure corridor and maximum wells per pad. This is the key, but it shows that we have a number of options for this area.
No further questions, Mr. Examiner. Offer the exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Ray, what's your anticipated spud for these?
The Q3 at the earliest next year.
And they would be batch drilled?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ray, how many additional pads will you need to add for this? Is that 4?
So there's a number of options there. So I'd say the least likely, but worst case would be 2 wells per pad. So in that case, you'd be at 8 pads, but that's unlikely. I see combining at least 4 wells per pad for most of these.
Okay. Thank you.
That concludes our hearing for case number 31142. Oh, I'm sorry, 31141. Now 31142, application of Hunt Oil Company for an order for the Sioux Trail Bakken Pool, Divide County, North Dakota, to create and establish 3 overlapping 1920 acre space units comprised of sections 1, 12, and 13, sections 2, 11, and 14, and sections 23, 26, and 35, Township 160 North, Range 101 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 4 wells on each proposed overlapping 1920 acre space unit. Such further relief as appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing this matter, case 31143, on behalf of Hunt Oil Company. We'll be calling three witnesses, same three witnesses we called in the previous
that?
case.
Yeah.
Say that again?
You said 31143?
Oh, I meant to say 31142. If I said three, I apologize. Same three witnesses.
Okay, yeah, we're all
I
set
can
to proceed.
proceed?
Yep.
Okay. Matt, let's go to Exhibit 1. Can you tell me what Exhibit 1 is?
Exhibit 1 is a regional location map, so showing Sioux Trail Field in Divide County.
And Exhibit 2.
Exhibit 2 are the proposed 1920 acre spacing units, showing Hunt's working interest in the existing 1280s with the proposed overlapping 1920s in the red dash line. The sections 2, 11, and 14, Hunt would have a 95.5% working interest. Sections 23, 26, and 35, Hunt would have a 78.9% working interest. Sections 1, 12, and 13, Hunt would have an 80.3% working interest. And I want to note that I apologize for this not being included, and we can submit a supplemental, but 24, 25, and 36 is already established as a stand-up 1920, where Hunt owns 100% working interest in sections 25 and 36.
No further questions.
Any questions from staff? You can proceed.
Kathleen, would you turn to Exhibit 3, please?
Yes.
Can you tell me what that exhibit is, please?
Exhibit 3 is a structure map of the top of the Bakken Formation. The proposed 1920 units are shaded in pink. Middle Bakken horizontal wells are highlighted in blue, and Three Forks horizontal wells are highlighted in red. And the type log for the Sioux Trail field is circled in red.
And then let's go to Exhibit 4.
Exhibit 4 is a type log for the Sioux Trail field. The Sioux Trail Bakken pool is defined as 50 feet above the top of the Bakken Formation to above the top of the Bird Bear Formation. And Track 1 is gamma ray. Track 2 are porosity curves. And Track 3 are resistivity curves. The top of the Bakken Formation and the top of the Three Forks Formation are highlighted in red, and the Middle Bakken Reservoir and the Three Forks Reservoir are highlighted in yellow.
No further questions.
Any questions from the staff?
What's the target formation that you're going for on these wells?
Middle Bakken.
Okay, thank you.
You can proceed.
Okay, Ray, let's go to the next exhibit, Exhibit 5.
Exhibit 5 shows our proposed development for these overlapping 1920 acre units with the unit outlines, red dashed lines, and proposed wellbores are in red.
I'm sorry, did you finish?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go to Exhibit 6.
That's our typical wellbore schematic, and that's the way that we plan to drill and complete these wells.
And Exhibit 7.
So it shows the reservoir and properties, reserves, and economics. The 542 MBO EUR, $3 million PV10.
And then Exhibit 8, is that a typical gas capture affidavit that's required by the commission in these sorts of matters?
Yes.
Okay, and then can you identify and briefly describe the importance of Exhibit 9?
Yes, in Exhibit 9, we're showing the topography and hydrography of the area. So to understand where workable locations are for pads, and we're still working this piece, but we're striving to minimize the impact of the surface by combining infrastructure into corridors and get as many wells per pad as we can.
In your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect correlative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
No further questions, Mr. Examiner. Offer the exhibits, and then I guess a question. We have testimony from an expert witness that 24, 25, and 36 are a stand-up 1920. Does the commission require anything further than that? Okay. Let the record reflect that Mark is shaking his head no.
Okay, well, the exhibits are admitted. Anything further from staff?
Ray, this is Caleb. When's your anticipated spud date for these wells?
As soon as Q3 of next year.
Lots going on in Q3 next year. How many pads are you planning on, additional pads are you going to add to this area?
Yes, we're still evaluating that, but I think we can get as many as 4 wells per pad here.
Okay. And then are you planning on batch drilling these? Or are you doing it?
Right. Yes, we'll be batch drilling and zipper fracking.
Okay. And then is your interwell distance going to be 1,100 like the other ones? Is that
Yes. Yeah, that's where we can be evenly spaced. Yeah, that's the ideal.
And then in section, Exhibit 5, Section 23, looks like there's going to be an area that doesn't have that interwell distance that you were looking for. Is there any plans for that acreage there?
Right. So each of those well bores we would move closer together. So our directional plan would bend those in and try to get as close to even spacing there as well as we can.
Okay. And then I did notice there are some wells there. What are the plans for those? Keep producing those, or active frac protect as well?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we shut them in during the frac, and then we'll bring them back online and produce them alongside the new 15,000-foot wells.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray.
Thanks.
That concludes our hearing for case number 31142. Case number 31143, application of Hunt Oil Company for an order for the Diamond Bakken Pool and/or Vanville Bakken Pool, Burke County, North Dakota, as follows. 1. Create and establish a 1920-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 23, 26, and 35, Township 160 North, Range 90 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 4 wells on said proposed 1920-acre spacing unit. And 2. Create and establish 2 overlapping 1920-acre spacing units comprised of sections 3, 10, and 15, and sections 9, 16, and 21, Township 159 North, Range 90 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 4 wells on each proposed overlapping 1920-acre spacing unit, and such further relief as appropriate. I will note that the request for the 1920-acre spacing unit consisting of sections 9, 16, and 21, 15990 has been withdrawn from this application. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner, and thank you for pointing out for the record that those sections were withdrawn. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing case 31143 on behalf of Hunt Oil Company. We're now going to switch back to Chelsea Cherry as a land witness. Other than that change, the witnesses in this case will be the same as the previous matter.
And they all remain under oath.
Chelsea, let's turn to the packet of exhibits for 31143. Turn first to Exhibit 1. Can you tell me what Exhibit 1 is?
Exhibit 1 is a regional location map of Diamond and Vanville Field in Burke County.
And Exhibit 2.
Exhibit 2 shows Hunt's working interest in the proposed 1920 units that are outlined in red dash, 23, 26, and 35 of 16090. Hunt has a working interest of 61%, and 3, 10, and 15 of 15990. Hunt has a working interest of 62%.
And Chelsea, it's possible we may have to submit a supplemental exhibit here, but can you tell us generally how you believe, well, not generally, but can you tell us how 11 and 14 are going to be developed, and 22 and 34? Or we can file a supplemental exhibit if we need to, so.
Sorry, where? Which section?
Well, maybe there's no wells in there, so maybe it's not a problem, but I was looking at 11 and 14 and 22 and 34. Oh, wait, maybe that doesn't, whatever's below 22. I guess it's,
Do you want me to ask some questions, Lawrence?
yeah, I guess so. I don't have any other questions.
So Chelsea, as Lawrence alluded to, sections 14 and 23 are stand-up 1280. What's going to happen to section 14 if this application is approved?
Oh, sorry, you were 6990. Okay. I think we would request that be terminated. Lime Rock is the other owner in this area, and they plan to also develop their future locations as 1920s that we've discussed with them in the area.
So I understand you probably want that 1280 dissolved, but what's going to happen to section 14 then, because 2 and 11 are a stand-up 1280?
I don't think there's any producing wells in those units.
That's correct. So what's going to happen to section 14?
I think the ideal plan would be to develop it as a 1920 with section 11 and 2.
Does Hunt have any interest in section 14?
We do not.
Do you know who does have interest in section 14?
As far as I know, it's still unleased.
So in sections 33 and 34 and section 3 are currently in L-shaped 1920. Are there any plans to develop that spacing unit?
No, we discussed that with Lime Rock, and they do not have plans to develop that those 1920 spacing units. They instead are planning on doing a 1920 in 22, 27, and 34.
And likewise, sections 33, 3 and 4 are L-shaped 1920. I assume likewise there's no plans to develop that spacing unit?
Yes, the Lime Rock said they do not have any plans to develop that spacing unit.
So if you could supplement the record with what you believe should happen to section 14 and how that might be developed.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You can proceed.
Okay, we'll recall Kathleen. Kathleen, can you turn to the next exhibit in the packet, Exhibit 3, and tell us what that is?
Exhibit 3 is a structure map of the top of the Bakken Formation. The proposed 1920 units are shaded in pink. The middle Bakken horizontal wells are highlighted in blue, and the 3/4 horizontal wells are highlighted in red. Location for the type log cross-section for the Diamond and Vanville field is also highlighted in this map by a red line.
And Exhibit 4.
Exhibit 4 is a type log cross-section for the Diamond and Vanville field. The Diamond Bakken pool is defined as 50 feet above the top of the Bakken Formation to above the top of the Burbear Formation. The Vanville Bakken Pool is defined as 50 feet above the top of the Bakken Formation to 50 feet below the top of the Three Forks Formation. In both of these wells, track 1 is Amaranth, track 2 are porosity curves, and track 3 are resistivity curves. The top of the Bakken Formation and the top of the Three Forks Formation are highlighted in red, and the Middle Bakken Reservoir and the Three Forks Reservoir are shaded in yellow.
I don't have any questions for this witness.
Any questions from staff? You can proceed.
Ray, I'll have you turn to Exhibit 5. Tell us what 5 is.
Yes, Exhibit 5 is our proposed development for the 1920 acre units, and we've got them highlighted in red dash lines, and tentative wellbore positions are shown in red.
And Exhibit 6.
It's a typical wellbore schematic, and this is how we plan to drill and complete these wells.
And Exhibit 7.
That's the reservoir properties, reserves, and economics. So this is showing, we're expecting 599 MBO EUR and a PV10 of $5.9 million.
And Exhibit 8, is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requests in these sorts of matters?
Yes.
And then let's go to Exhibit 9. Can you identify that and tell us the importance of it?
Yes, so here in Exhibit 9, we're showing the topography and the surface water conditions that we're looking at as we're evaluating locations for pads and infrastructure.
In your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
No further questions, Mr. Examiner. We request that the record remain open. Was it September
14th.
14th? To allow the submission of some supplemental exhibits.
The record will remain open in this case until September 14th. And I assume you
I
want
think
to
I gave
admit?
you an opportunity to accept the exhibits I offered either because I started talking about something else.
That's fine. The exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Ray, what's your anticipated spud?
This is Q3 next year.
Q3 of 2025?
Yes, sir.
Are you going to be picking up multiple rigs for this township?
Yeah, that's correct. And then Q3, for all of these is the first soonest spud date, and then as we flesh out the timing for each well, that you could drag on further.
And these are pending based on the pilot in the area?
That's correct.
So none of these locations are scheduled yet, right?
Correct. Yeah, we have room open in the schedule, and pending the results of the pilot, we'll determine whether or not we officially add those to the schedule.
And these will be batch drilled?
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Ray, I don't know if it's been mentioned yet, but what is the target for these laterals?
This is the Middle Bakken Formation.
Thank you.
That concludes our hearing for case number 31143. And with that, we'll take a 10-minute break.
Not going to try to do your job again, Mark.
We are back on the record. We'll begin by calling case number 31049, application of Hunt Oil Company for an order amending the field rules for the partial Bakken Pool, Montreal County, North Dakota, so as to create and establish the following. 1, an overlapping 1280-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 25 and 36, Township 155 North, Range 90 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 2 wells on said proposed overlapping 1280-acre spacing unit, and 2, an overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 25 and 36, Township 155 North, Range 90 West, and sections 30 and 31, Township 155 North, Range 89 West, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well on or near the section line between existing spacing units on said proposed overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit, and/or such other and further relief as appropriate. This case has been continued to the September hearings. That concludes our hearing for case number 31049. Case number 31144, application of Continental Resources for an order authorizing exception to the current requirements of NDAC section 43020321 relative to monitoring and maintaining hydrostatic pressure as required in said rule for 2 wells producing from a spacing unit described as sections 8 and 17, Township 146 North, Range 96 West, operated by the applicant in the Rattlesnake Point Bakken Pool, and such other and further relief. This case has been dismissed. Concludes our hearing for case number 31144. Case number 31145, application of Continental Resources, Inc. for an order authorizing the exception to the current requirements of NDAC section 43020321 relative to monitoring and maintaining hydrostatic pressure as required in said rule for 2 wells producing from a spacing unit described as sections 7 and 18, Township 146 North, Range 96 West, operated by the applicant in the Rattlesnake Point Bakken Pool, and such other and further relief. This case has been dismissed. Concludes our hearing for case number 31145. Case number 31146, application of Continental Resources, Inc. for an order authorizing an exception to the current requirements of NDAC section 43020321 relative to monitoring and maintaining hydrostatic pressure as required in said rule for 2 wells produced from a spacing unit described as section 31, Township 147 North, Range 96 West, and section 6, Township 146 North, Range 96 West, operated by the applicant in the Rattlesnake Point Bakken Pool, and such other and further relief. This case has been dismissed. Concludes our hearing for case number 31146. Case number 31147, application of Continental Resources, Inc. for an order authorizing an exception to the current requirements of NDAC section 43020321 relative to monitoring and maintaining hydrostatic pressure as required in said rule for 2 wells producing from a spacing unit described as section 31, Township 147 North, Range 96 West, and sections 6, 7, and 18, Township 146 North, Range 96 West, operated by the applicant in the Rattlesnake Point Bakken Pool, and such other and further relief. This case has been dismissed. That concludes our hearing for case number 31147. Case number 31148, application of Continental Resources for an order amending the field rules for the Grinnell Bakken Pool and/or West Kappa Bakken Pool, Williams County, North Dakota, as follows. 1, authorizing the drilling, completing, and producing of a horizontal well with the lateral located approximately 394 feet from the west line, and authorizing the drilling, completing, and producing of a horizontal well with the lateral located approximately 409 feet from the west line on an existing 2560-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 4, 9, 16, and 21, Township 154 North, Range 96 West, and 2, authorizing the drilling, completing, and producing of a horizontal well with a lateral located approximately 384 feet from the east line, and authorizing the drilling, completing, and producing of a horizontal well with the lateral located approximately 400 feet from the east line of an existing 2560-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 5, 8, 17, and 20, Township 154 North, Range 96 West, and such other and further relief. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota, and I'm appearing in case number 31148 on behalf of Continental Resources, Inc. we intend to call 3 witnesses in this matter. First witness will be Austin Williams.
Mr. Williams?
Austin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Mr. Williams, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Austin, state your full name for the record, please.
Robert Austin Williams,
And Austin, by whom are you employed?
Continental Resources,
And in what capacity?
senior landman in the Williston Basin.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, sir.
And have you had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes, sir.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Austin, I assume you have in front of you a package of exhibits for case 31148?
Yes.
Could you turn to what's been previously marked as Exhibit L1, identify L1, and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it?
Sure. Exhibit L1 is a general locator map. It's depicting the West Capa, the Grinnell fields that are relevant in 154 North, 97 West, 154 96 West. This is just showing the proposed area of sections 4, 5, 8, 9, 16, 17, 20, and 21.
All right, and then let's go to L2.
L2 is just a land plat of sections 4 and 9 of 154 North, 96 West. That is a 1280 spacing unit, and in the top right corner you can see our working interest summary with Continental, XTO, and then others listed.
Okay, and L3?
L3 is also a land plat of sections 16 and 21, 154 North, range 96 West. Again, in the top right corner, we've got our working interest summary of Continental, XTO, and others listed. This is also a 1280 spacing unit.
Okay, and then L4.
L4 is a land plat of sections 5, 8, 17, and 20, 154 North, 96 West. This is the 2560 acre spacing unit with Continental and XTO's working interest in the top right, and then the remaining working interest owners and also in the top right.
Now, your Exhibit L2 identifies 4 and 9 as a 1280, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And your Exhibit L3 indicates that 16 and 21 is a 1280, is that correct?
That is correct.
So if there's anything in the application that would suggest that 4, 9, 16, and 21 is a 2560, that would be incorrect, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And with respect to 4, 9, and 16 and 21, and 5, 8, 17, and 20, because Continental Resources has less than a majority interest in those 3 spacing units, will Continental Resources have discussions with other working interest owners to determine who should be the operator?
That is correct, and those discussions have taken place with XTO.
Okay. And has any determination been made as a result of those discussions?
Yes, Continental will be the operator.
I don't have any other questions of this witness.
Any questions from the staff? Mr. Koo?
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Carl, will you state your full name for the record, please?
Carl Koo,
And Carl, by whom are you employed?
Continental Resources.
In what capacity?
I'm an operations geologist.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, sir.
Have you had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Okay, Carl, let's turn to the next exhibits in the packet. The first one is labeled G1. Can you tell me what G1 is and then briefly discuss some of the pertinent material that's on G1?
Yes, Exhibit G1, this is our locator map. It's showing our proposed location highlighted in yellow, and it is also outlined in red. On this map is our surface structure of the upper Bakken and on a 50-foot contour interval. Also annotated in there in the red star is the Brownell 3411 type log. This is what I'm using for this area as a representative of the rock character in the proposed unit.
Okay, let's go to G2 and have you briefly discuss that exhibit.
Exhibit G2, this is the type log that is annotated by the red star from the map from the previous exhibit. It displays the back and pull for both the West Kappa and Grinnell fields from 50 feet above the upper Bakken Shale to the base of the Three Forks. And I have reservoir parameters at the bottom associated with this type log.
No further questions of this witness.
Any questions from staff? Ms. Elliott?
Having trouble hearing you, Kate.
How's this?
Better.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Kate, state your full name for the record, please.
Kate Elliott,
And Kate, by whom are you employed?
Continental Resources,
In what capacity?
as a Northern Region Resource Development Engineer.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Kate, let's turn back to the packet of exhibits. I'm going to have you start with Exhibit E1. And can you identify E1 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it?
Yes, Exhibit E1 is a directional plot highlighting the proposed mirror exception wells as green dashed lines. Though only these 4 wells are shown, the entirety of the existing and future development will be shown in the next exhibit. An existing 2560-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 5, 8, 17, and 20 will have 2 middle Bakken mirror exception wells drilled between the 500-foot and 250-foot setbacks. Each of these 2 middle Bakken wells will be mirrored by middle Bakken wells drilled in both the 1280-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 4 and 9 and in the 1280-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 16 and 21. The planned surface locations are shown as blue squares. Each of the sets of mirrored wells are planned to be drilled at approximately the same time from the 2 separate surface locations. The eastern location will be stimulated immediately after the western location, allowing the mirrored well to be brought on at approximately the same time.
Okay, then let's go to E2, and I know we have a similar exhibit, so maybe you could just touch on E2, and then we'll go right to E2.1, and you can describe the differences, or however you want to distinguish the 2 exhibits is fine with me, but I'd like you to do that, please.
Okay, Exhibit E2 is an outdated version of Exhibit E2.1, with the primary difference being the color of the lines on the map. So if I move to Exhibit E2.1, this is a directional plot showing the entirety of the existing and future development in sections 5, 8, 17, 20, 4, 9, 16, and 21. The existing development is shown in the pink and green solid lines, and the future development, including the mirror exception wells, are shown as the dashed pink and green lines.
All the new development is again planned to occur together with all the wells coming online as close to each other as operations physically allow.
Okay, and we've already had some testimony from Mr. Williams about the fact that 5, 8, 17, and 20 are an existing 2560. Can you, and I don't think that was a request by Continental, but could you go to Exhibit E3 and identify that exhibit, explain what's contained upon it, in particularly with respect to why the west half of this area that you're proposing to develop is a 2560.
Yes, Exhibit E3 is a satellite imagery map depicting the approximate surface locations shown in the previous exhibits as blue squares. These locations were selected in order to minimize surface disturbance. You can see there's a lot of agriculture in this area that we don't want to disturb. We'll also be utilizing existing infrastructure as much as possible with these location selections and be able to maximize economic recovery.
Okay, and part of the agricultural development that you talk about in this area is in the one section where it looks like there's a pivot irrigation system, and your proposed location would be outside that pivot irrigation area. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let's go on to the next exhibit then, Kate, Exhibit E4. Tell us what E4 is.
Exhibit E4 is a schematic of our typical 2-mile Middle Bakken well. We're showing a TD of about 21,000 feet measured depth and a 7-inch casing point at about 11,000 feet measured depth. The lateral will be cemented and completed with plug-and perf stages paired with hydraulic fracturing operations.
Okay, and then let's go to E5.
Exhibit E5 outlines the reserves and economics for an individual 2-mile well. Starting with the reserve section, we're expecting an oil IP of about 1,800 barrels of oil per day, an oil EUR of 450,000 barrels of oil, a gas EUR of 7 million cubic feet, and a BOE EUR of 951,000 BOE, and an EUR GOR of about 6,500. Moving on to the economic section, with a total estimated gross drilling and completion cost of $8.1 million, a $60 oil and $3 gas price deck, and the reserves mentioned previously, we're expecting a total MPV of $3 million per well, a rate of return of 75% per well, and an undiscounted payout of 2 years. Lastly are shown the reservoir parameters broken out for the Middle Bakken as Carl previously spoke to in his exhibit.
Okay. And Exhibit GM1, is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of matters?
Yes.
And Kate, in your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
Mr. Examiner, that's all the questions I have. I'd offer the exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Kate, what's your anticipated spud for these?
It will be later this year in, so looking at November or December. Actually, let me consult my most recent schedule for that date.
Do you want to supplement, or are you doing that now?
I'm doing that now. Okay, we'll do a supplement.
Okay. And would you be drilling this out with one rig, or be picking up multiple?
This will be multiple rigs. So the current timing has each of these 2 pads of interest being drilled at approximately the same time, but a large portion of that time will be overlapped with 6 wells being drilled from each pad.
Currently, there's overlapping 2560s for sections 4, 5, 8, and 9, as well as 16, 17, 20, and 21. If this application were to be approved, is there any use for those overlaps? Would there be a section line well possible in the future, or should those be terminated?
I don't believe those will be utilized in this current round of development, but they could potentially be of use in the future.
So you'd like to keep those?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Kate, as a follow-up to that, you're gonna have two wells that are, well, no, let's go, so the well that's 394 feet from the west line, is that the north well on 4 and 9?
I have that labeled as the southern well in section 16 and 21.
So that's 16 and 21,
Did you say 490 feet from the west line?
394.
Or 394? No, I misunderstood, Kate, you're fine.
So 394 is the well in 16 and 21.
That's what Exhibit E1 says.
One. Oh, I see it there. Got it. I was missing that. Okay. So in a follow-up to Stephen's questions, you're gonna have wells that are roughly 800 feet apart. What's your, is that your ideal interlateral distance here?
Yes, this is our ideal development plan to best develop these sections between the existing wells. These sections of rock, I'm sorry, not legal sections.
So if you drill wells 800 feet apart and you want to drill a lease line well in between, isn't that considerably tighter spacing?
Yes, that would be considerably future development, the potential for that lease line there. It would not be part of our primary development plan. Our preferred development plan for this immediate development would be the 800-ish foot spacing that is outlined on E1. And we would not be drilling the section line well at the time.
Under what scenario would you drill a section line well?
Perhaps if in the future we decide we have technology that would make that the right decision.
So at that time, you can come back and reestablish that if you needed to?
Yes, yes, we could.
Okay, thank you.
So I suppose we could terminate the 2560.
Yeah, thank you, that's where I was going.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Kate, I had one quick question. Are these, some of these existing pads, are you going to be adding on to them, or are some of them going to be new builds?
Yes, if we look at E3, you can see one of those locations is located directly adjacent to an existing pad. That pad was not exactly large enough for these wells, so we chose a location directly offsetting it so we could utilize a lot of the existing infrastructure that was already associated with the existing pad.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And Kate, that was the one in section 8, is that correct?
Correct.
How about in section 16, are you building a new pad there?
Yes, we'll be expanding the existing pad for the eastern wells, but we were unable to fit the western wells on that pad. So we will be building a new pad for the western wells that will house both the southern laterals and the northern laterals in section 4 and 9, those northern laterals. So we're minimizing the surface use by using one pad for those 6 wells, but we did have to build a new pad for that.
And then in the northwest of 17, is there a pad there right now? It looks like it.
Yes, there's an existing pad there that we'll also be utilizing.
So was that just,
We did not build that pad. It was previously built.
okay, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna keep the record open.
September 14.
It works. The record will remain open in this case until September 14th. And I will admit the exhibits, Lawrence.
Pardon me?
I'll admit the exhibits.
Perfect.
Yeah, okay. That concludes our hearing for case number 31148. Case number 31149, application of Continental Resources for an order for the West Kappa Bakken Pool and/or Grinnell Bakken Pool, Williams and McKenzie Counties, North Dakota, to create and establish 2 overlapping 2560-acre spacing units comprised of sections 27 and 34, Township 155 North, Range 97 West, and sections 3 and 10, Township 154 North, Range 97 West, and sections 211, 14, and 23, Township 154 North, Range 97 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 4 wells on each proposed overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit. Such further relief is appropriate. This case has been continued to the September hearings. Concludes our hearing for case number 31149. Case number 31150, application of Continental Resources, Inc. for an order permitting the use of casing laid on the ground for the purpose of pumping hydraulic fracturing fluid between 2 specific well pads located in section 14 and section 13, Township 156 North, Range 99 West, East Fork Field, Williams County, North Dakota, and allowing casing to be installed from the pad of the following wells: Christofferson 5-14H well, Christofferson 6-14H well, Christofferson 7-14H well, Vandenberg 4-35H well, Vandenberg 5-35H well, Vandenberg 6-35H well, and Vandenberg 7-35 HSL well, located in the southwest-southeast quarter, Section 14, Township 156 North, Range 99 West, connected to the pad of the following wells: Carpenter 2-13H well, Carpenter 3-13H well, Carpenter 4-13H well, Carpenter 5-13H well, Carpenter 6-13H well, Carpenter 7-13 HSL well, Sandhill 2-24H well, Sandhill 3-24H well, Sandhill 4-24H well, Sandhill 5-24H well, Sandhill 6-24H well, and Sandhill 7-24 HSL well, located in the southeast-southwest quarter of Section 13, Township 156 North, Range 99 West. And such further relief is appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota, and I'm appearing in case 31150 on behalf of Continental Resources, Inc. Our Continental's intention is to call 2 individuals from Continental Resources to testify, but we do have another individual here with Continental Resources who's available in the event that there's some questions that the other 2 witnesses won't be able to answer, or that they could be better answered by this 3rd individual. And the witnesses are at the table and they're ready to be sworn.
Mr. Amon,
Yes.
please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Guy, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Guy Walton Aman,
And Guy, by whom are you employed?
Continental Resources,
In what capacity?
the construction superintendent.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
In fact, you've been testified before the commission in cases similar to the one that today, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you've had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
I have.
And offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Guy, let's turn to the first exhibit in the packet. It's been previously marked as Exhibit 1. And in conjunction with discussing Exhibit 1, since the commission doesn't hear that many cases like this, perhaps you could just give a very, very brief overview as to what the relief involves and why you're requesting the relief.
Okay. Our ask, our intent for this project is to simultaneously stimulate both our Carpenter and Sandhill, Christopherson, and Vanderburg well pads from a standalone staging pad located in the southeast of Section 14. This stimulation process will be completed using a combination of produced water and fresh from a remote staging pad.
And what are some of the advantages of using the remote stimulation rather than setting up on the well pad of each well?
Increased efficiencies and less waste related to rig down, rig up time. Our traffic impact is centralized. Our pumps, our completion equipment are located remotely from the well pads, which allows for more efficiencies in the event of a downhole failure.
So significant cost savings, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Why don't you briefly discuss now what's contained on Exhibit 1?
Okay, Exhibit 1 in the top pane of the drawing is a vicinity map. In the southeast of Section 14, our staging pad is shown in the center. Our Christopherson Vanderburg pad is shown to the west. Our Carpenter Sandhill pad is shown to the east. The blue line at the north end of the pads is our proposed right-of-way for our remote stimulation line.
Okay, and I believe that's the only exhibit you're going to be discussing today, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I have no further questions for this witness.
Any questions from staff?
Guy, this is a little hard for me to read. Could you submit this as a PDF?
Yes.
And so you said the remote stim pad is the one in the center?
That's correct.
And what type of land is that currently? Is it pasture, farmland,
A tillable land, it's a wheat field.
it's a wheat field? And so you're proposing to build a pad there?
I am.
And from a bonding perspective, how should the commission handle that?
The well pad should be tagged to the bonds that we currently have for our oil wells.
So we would put it on one of Continental's blanket bonds, just like an oil well?
That's what I would suggest.
And do you have a surface use agreement for that pad?
We do.
Since it's tillable land, I'm curious what time of year are you planning on performing these operations?
The wheat was harvested last week. We intend on performing this operation in Q4 of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe you'll touch on this later, but what's the approximate length of the line you'd be running?
A little less than a half mile. East one way, east half mile one way, west half mile another.
Half mile each way?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Did you say you're ready for your next witness then?
Yes.
Good. Mr. Slagle, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Jordan, state your full name for the record, please.
Jordan David Slagle,
And Jordan, by whom are you employed?
Continental Resources,
In what capacity?
completion superintendent.
Okay, and in that capacity, have you had an opportunity to testify before the commission previously?
No.
What I'd like you to do is briefly highlight for the examiner and the commission staff your educational background and work experience.
Okay. I'm a petroleum engineer, and I've been in the industry 20 years, 13 of them for Continental Resources as a completions.
And tell us a little bit about your education. Where'd you get your petroleum engineering degree?
Montana Tech, Butte.
Any advanced degrees other than the petroleum engineer degree?
No.
Okay. And in preparation for today's hearing, have you made a thorough study and review of all the pertinent matters concerning the request that Continental has made?
Yes.
And have you prepared or had prepared under your control and supervision, meaning did you have somebody else help you and you reviewed it, exhibits that you intend to sponsor?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Okay, Jordan, let's turn to the next exhibit in the packet. Guy briefly discussed Exhibit 1. I want you to go to Exhibit 2. First, identify the exhibits, tell us what it is, and then briefly discuss some of the information that's contained on the exhibit.
Okay. This highlights the grade, weight, and OD of the casing, the connection style, and who makes it, and then the burst factor, safety factor related to it, how we intend to deploy it and recover it, where we intend on making it up, and how we intend on pressure testing it, inspecting it, and watching it during the job.
Let's talk a little bit about the inspection. I think Mr. Amon indicated that it was approximately a half-mile long. Will you inspect it by walking the line periodically?
Yes, we'll walk the line. We also deploy thermal cameras and daytime cameras that have pan tilt zoom.
I missed the last part of which.
They pan tilt zoom, so we can zoom across the stretch.
Okay, and how many times will you walk the line per day? Once a day or more than once a day?
In between stages, we'll occasionally walk them.
Let's go on to the next exhibit, Jordan, then Exhibit 3. Give everyone a little time here to get it opened up. So, like what you did for Exhibit 2, I'd like you to identify Exhibit 3 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon that.
Okay. Exhibit 3 is the Tenaris hydro wedge connection we plan on using, and on the right side is the specifications from the manufacturer on this. Highlighted on the left in the bullets is the yield strength, 16,510, and the capacity of the line heading east is 44 barrels. The capacity of the line heading west is 21 barrels.
And in terms of the specs of the casing that you're planning on using on this operation, are they similar to what you've used in other operations that the commission has approved?
Yes, this is the exact casing design that we've used in our previous orders.
And did you have any problems on those operations?
No.
Okay. Let's go on to the next exhibit then, Jordan, Exhibit 4. Once again, identify, and not a lot of information there, but still you can briefly discuss what's on it.
Okay, this is our intention to use about 75% freshwater blend and the 25% produced. We plan to use the NDIC approved open water tank or open top tank on the staging pad.
All right, and then Exhibit 5, can you tell us what Exhibit 5 is?
These are the safety considerations, how we plan on monitoring for leaks and preventing any kind of failure on site.
All right, and Exhibit 6, I know that Guy briefly talked about some of the benefits, but perhaps you can cover some of the additional benefits that are listed on Exhibit 6.
Guy covered most of it, but without mobilizing the crew between the two pads, we'll reduce a lot of off-site activity. For us, rigging up is where most people get hurt, so that rig up activity will be reduced. The capital competitiveness, this being done in other basins across the country, should help make us a little more capitally effective up here. we also try to use as much produced water as we can and give us that ability to use more produced water.
Tell me how the operation is going to reduce traffic. That's one of the matters you have on your list of benefits. Can you just spend a moment or two discussing that for us?
Yeah, if we break it apart and have to go to the crews to both of the pads independently, we'll have that extra rig down where we'll have to mobilize all that crew from one pad to the other.
Right. And then we have attached here an appendix, and they're marked as Exhibit 7 and Exhibit 8. Can you just identify what's contained on 7 and 8 and just briefly discuss the importance of those two exhibits to the application?
Exhibit 7 is a picture of the previously granted produced water remote STEM job that we did this year earlier. And Exhibit 8 is the Cameron Monoflex connection and its specifications. That is where the casing changes back over to on-site iron.
Okay, and on your Exhibit 7, the remote stimulation operations are set up on the right side of that photo. Is that correct?
So the lower left is the frac crew, and it's tied together to that operation at the top of the picture on the other side of the tank.
Okay, I misunderstood then, but isn't that an open-top tank that's off to the right-hand side of the photo?
That is a freshwater tank though. Our on-site is out of the picture. That was approved. Sorry, it got clipped.
That's all the questions I have, Mr. Examiner. We'd offer the exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
I have a couple questions. Looking at Exhibit 1, the way you have the pad set up, I'm assuming it's a straight line, but I just wanted to make sure that it'll be a straight line for the most part.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And then also on the Exhibit 2, what will be your operating pressure at?
9,500 PSI is our max.
Okay. Would you be willing to test above that also?
Yes.
Okay. The location of the cameras and how many of those will you have available? And it sounds like they'll have zoom capacities also, but looking half mile each way, excuse me, might be a little difficult. So where will those be located at?
One on each pad.
One on each pad on the either ends. Okay. And then will this be new casing and wedges that will be used?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I have just a couple of questions too about the process and how it works. So you're going to be putting proppant laden fluid on site and then pumping that down to the well?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a rough approximate treating rate that you're going to be going at?
80 barrels a minute max.
80 barrels max. Okay. And then, I guess, what's your rough sand concentration? Doesn't have to be exact, but what ballpark?
We start at a ½ pound, and usually our highest concentration is 3 pound.
Okay. And then that's going to be your whole fluid system. Like I said, everything, basically what's going downhole is going to be going up there. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Another question, what's the anticipated timeline, or, how long do you anticipate the operation lasting?
We average about 2 days per well.
So Jordan, on Exhibit 7, I just want to understand this a little better. In the application we're looking at today, So the new pad you're gonna build where there's no wells, that would be similar to what's in the lower left?
Correct.
So that's where all the sand, all the water is gonna be. And then you're gonna pump it over to the remote wells. So what's on location on where the remote wells are? As far as frac crew type equipment?
In this picture, the same thing in that upper pad picture. It would be wireline, a couple pumps, a couple cranes, and a couple small frac tanks.
Do you think I can see that on that picture? Okay, so in this picture we're looking at, what's with the, I assume that's a large tank on the right side there? Is that correct? That black oval?
Yeah, so the black ovals are freshwater offsite tank. And we brought that over to the frac and blended it with the on-site tank you can't see in the picture.
So in this application we're looking at today, will that tank will be on with the frac crew equipment on the same site?
Yeah, the fresh and produced water will be on the remote staging pad.
So when you're done with this fracture stimulation operation, then next spring you would reclaim that site, or?
The staging pad would be fully reclaimed and returned to the surface owner.
So on exhibit. On exhibit 2, the casing will be assembled one joint at a time and drug across to the remote sites.
That's correct.
And then it will be disassembled in reverse order.
Yes.
I don't know if it says in here, but this doesn't have to cross any roads.
It does to the east side of our remote staging area, crosses a township avenue.
So what takes place there to protect the casing?
We have an agreement in place with the township where we will close the avenue during this operation.
And then, so is there a monoflex connection on, just looking at one remote site, is there a monoflex connection on each end of the pipe? Or only on the one, on the remote stim site?
Each end.
What is your, on exhibit 2, you say you're gonna test it for 30 minutes at 9,500 PSI. What qualifies as a satisfactory test?
The same as standard as we have for our 7-inch casing.
I believe, well, I know in one of the previous applications, in case number 33368, was stated it was going to test at that same 9,500 PSI for 30 minutes using fresh water, charting and recording the test, and using a 4% or less drop in pressure. Would that be a similar case here?
Yes.
You said 9,500 PSI is your maximum pressure. What pressure do you anticipate will be on the casing when you're at a normal part of a stage?
Our normal jobs are between 8,800 and 9,200.
And And you mentioned there's gonna be thermal imaging cameras, one, so where, will there be one at each end?
Yes.
And then you mentioned, I think you called them daylight cameras. Is that just a video surveillance camera?
Yeah, just a normal video surveillance.
And is that at the same place?
Yes.
So there'd be one at each end?
Yes.
And I believe you said that you would walk the line between stages occasionally. Will it be walked between each stage?
Yes.
So how many of these remote STEM jobs have you done? Have you done 2 of them?
3.
3? And there were no issues, I assume?
No.
And when were those conducted?
One was in December of 23, April and May of this year.
What do you estimate by using this remote STEM site, and you mentioned the mobilization efforts, how much do you think this will cut off your, how many days do you think it cut off your completion time for, if you had to do both pads separately and now you can do it from one pad, what do you think that'll save you?
Usually about 56 hours to move the crew, but in this case, we also have the additional benefit of being able to actually simul-frac them, which increases our efficiency.
Is that what you're gonna do?
Yes.
So is Continental settled on 25% produced water is the sweet spot they want to be at?
It depends on the delivery we can get from the gathering system, but that is our average.
And where is the produced water coming from for this operation?
The produced water would be sourced directly from our gathering system out of a riser located on the staging pad and inside the location dike.
Is that shown on Exhibit 1?
The blue line
The blue
across,
line to the,
across the north end of the well pads is our proposed catwalk gathering system that's currently under construction. That's where the water will be sourced from.
then you're gonna dike that remote STEM site and permit that through 19.3?
We'd hope to permit it through this action here.
Well, I think the site, to deploy that tank, you have to get a permit through 19.3, is that right?
I'm not 100% familiar with those rules. I can't answer that.
I'm embarrassed to say I'm not that familiar with that. Last time I looked at it was last spring when we,
I think there's a sundry required,
yeah, I think there's a sundry.
but not a separate permit.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah. No, we intend on fulfilling with the requirements of the rule change from earlier this year, submitting the sundry, the as-built, and things of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
Will that riser have to be built additionally, or is that already in place?
The riser is currently in place, but the pipe is empty.
Okay.
Once this operation is complete, the riser will be squeezed and cut off below
Okay.
plow depth and abandoned.
Okay, thank you.
I got one more question quick. I know you mentioned something about other basins are doing this. Is there any, do you know of any other additional requirements that they require, or?
I am not familiar with that.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Lawrence, I'll just note, it was brought to my attention that September 14th is a Saturday. So we're going to keep the records open in those cases till September 16th.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. And I assume that's for the submittal of Exhibit 1 in a PDF form, correct?
And that'll be for this case here.
Yeah,
So we'll keep the record open until September 16th.
yeah. I apologize for giving you the on Saturday.
No, that's fine.
We'll likely have a lot of this stuff submitted in advance of that deadline, so.
Okay, that concludes our hearing for case number 31150.
You want this now?
Case number 31151. In the matter of a hearing called on a motion of the commission to consider the temporary space needed to develop an oil and/or gas pool discovered by West Dry Creek 1H well, located in the southwest northeast border of Section 12, Township 160 North, Range 85 West, Renville County, North Dakota, define the field limits and enact such special field rules as may be necessary. All interested parties, please come forward.
I wasn't listening, Dave. Was this select?
No, this is Sparrow.
Oh, okay. You can still come up.
Okay, we're gonna go off the record for a couple minutes.
I'll tell you.
We are back on the record in case number 31151. I will note for the record that no one appeared in this matter. This case will be continued to the September hearings. That concludes our hearing for case number 31151. Case number 31152. In the matter of a hearing called on a motion of the commission to consider the application of Select Water Solutions LLC for an order authorizing the drilling of a saltwater disposal well to be utilized for fracture injection into the Dakota Group in a well to be known as the Mackenzie GNI 19-1 well to be located in the northeast southwest quarter of Section 19, Township 150 North, Range 99 West, South Tobacco Garden Field, Mackenzie County, North Dakota, pursuant to NDAC Chapter 430205, and such other relief as is appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in this matter. I'll say matters because we'd like to combine and consolidate cases 31152 and 31153 on behalf of Select Water Solutions, LLC. I'll just point out for the commission that a similar matter was heard before the commission in case 30672 and 30673. That was a couple months ago, and the commission had a number of questions, and the witnesses that are here today presented detailed testimony. And because these matters are so similar, we believe that the hearing process can be expedited if we incorporate the record from that case, cases 30672 and 30673, into these consolidated matters today, 31152 and 31153. I suspect, however, even though there's a great deal of testimony in those two cases that were previously heard by the commission, that there may be some questions of these witnesses. So my proposal would be is that I go through the qualifications of each of the two witnesses, and then the commission have an opportunity to ask questions. I may have some follow-up questions in terms of redirect, but I will not have any direct testimony to elicit from my clients.
Okay. Any objection from the commission to incorporate the cases? Okay, then we will incorporate the record from case numbers 30672 and 30673 into case numbers 31152, 31153. I've already called 31152. Let me call 31153. In the matter of a hearing called on a motion of the commission to determine the amount of bond to be required of Saltwater Solutions LLC from Mackenzie G&I 19-1 well to be drilled in the northeast southwest quarter of section 19, township 159 north, range 99 west, South Tobacco Garden Field, Mackenzie County, North Dakota, to be utilized for fracture injecture to the Dakota Group pursuant to NDAC section 4302-0315 and such other relief as is appropriate. And now we can proceed with these cases.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Examiners. And just for the record, I did request that these matters be consolidated, so I won't introduce myself again. I guess indicated, we do have two witnesses here from Select Water Solutions. I'll just get Gary sworn and introduce him. So, Gary, you want to state your full name for the record, please?
Gary Woolsey,
Can you spell your last name?
Woolsey.
And Gary, by whom are you employed?
Select Water Solutions.
And in what capacity are you employed by Select Water?
Employed as the VP of Waste Management for Select Water.
And you've testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
We would offer any further testimony this witness provides as that of an expert, but once again, I don't have any direct examination of this question.
Motion granted.
Brandon, has Brandon been sworn?
He has not been sworn.
Okay.
Brandon, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Also,
Brandon?
Mr. Woolsey hasn't been sworn in
Yeah,
either.
can we maybe just swear him after I finish?
Sure,
Yeah. Brandon, will you state your full name for the record, please?
Brandon Joseph Ailes,
And Brandon, by whom are you employed?
Northland Environmental Consulting.
And in terms of today's matter, you've been retained by Select Water Solutions, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
And what's your occupation generally?
Civil engineer.
Okay, and in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
I have.
Mr. Examiner, offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert. And I would also offer Mr. Woolsey's opportunity to be sworn at this time.
Sure. First motion is granted. Mr. Woolsey, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Okay, at this point, then, the commission has an opportunity to ask questions.
Brandon or Gary, can you just go through briefly the change from the prior application?
Yeah, the main change that we have had is that we have moved the well pad, the injection wellhead, I guess, to the north approximately 500 feet.
Okay, and did this result in any changes in your AOR as far as landowners to be notified and wells within the area of review?
It did. It actually reduced the number of landowners from, I believe, 8 to 6. And it took all of the wellheads within the half-mile AOR beyond that limit, I guess.
Do you know how far outside of the AOR the wells are at this point?
Just beyond it. Yep, I believe it's, what did we have it measured out at?
It's roughly about 20 feet outside of the 0.5 mile radius. They actually sit about 2,640 to 2,650 feet away.
And then yesterday, Hess submitted an opposition letter. Are you aware of that?
I was only aware of it late last night. I was traveling all yesterday. I said, did we get it? Did we?
I sent it to you.
Okay.
Do you need
So
a
I was
copy
on-
of it? So
yeah.
that, I'm sorry. Are you going to ask some questions about it?
I was hoping that they would go through and address this opposition.
Sure. I can only best guess it because I don't
Just a
know.
quick question. Are you going to do most of that, or is Brandon going to assist, or how are we going to do that?
I would think that it will be mostly myself.
Okay.
And there are some questions that may be related to Brandon, also geomechanical, but I can only answer what I can answer based on the fact that when we only got it yesterday.
I'm going to presume this is correct and just have them read the objection caption and then have him address it if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Thank you. So this is a letter of opposition to select board to propose slurry injection well Mackenzie GNI 19-1. NDIC case numbers 31152, 31153, which on today's date, right? Dear Mr. Bohr, Hess Barkin Investments.
Yeah, I don't want you to read the letter.
Okay.
It's broken up into some of the objections. Read the objection first and then address it if you could.
Sure. I think that the first part I would note out that it does state in this first paragraph I just noted that Hess well, the proposed location of Mackenzie well is within 2,000 feet north of the two Hess operating spacing units and the two producing well bores. That's actually not correct now. That's actually 2,650 feet away, I believe, in total. The objection number one, they stated the proposed injection pressure exceed the 0.8 psi per foot limit permitted in any other injection wells. As a result, the increased pressure will likely cause the slurry to create a hydraulic fracture network through the Mowry Shale, confining layer, and into the Belfourche and Greenhorn formations. The increased injection pressure also assumes that shallower shales will provide a sufficient confining layer for fracturing energy and fluid storage. If the materials injected into the proposed Mackenzie well were even to breach the Mowry Shale and penetrate the Greenhorn formation, the potential impact on regional wells and nearby spacing units would be significant. The request, Hess asked the NDIC to consider limiting the bottom hole injection pressures to below the fracture gradient of the confining layer, ensuring the Mowry formation remains the confining layer, which is consistent with the other Indian Kara disposal wells in the Williston Basin. So that was a request. I think there was a couple of points I would note on that to start with. The whole point of slurry fracture injection is that we are injecting above frac gradient to create our frac work nature, our fracture network, so that we can put the solids and store within the pore spaces in that network. So that's the first point. The other point on it, from our geomechanical studies, we know we have confining layers above and below that Indian Kara shale. So we know we do not penetrate above or below. All our material is stored within those fracture networks within the Indian Kara formation. Even though we are injecting above frac gradient, we are injecting at a certain rate and a certain pressure to ensure that we do not breach above or below. That would be my first point on that. Anything else is really about ensuring that we stay within the confining layers. That is what I just said. We will stay within those confining layers. Our geomechanics and our monitoring system keeps track of every single day, 24/7, of how things happen. To go on to the next one, the chemistry of injected fluids. The chemistry of injected fluids may pose a risk to the tubulars of existing and future wells from a corrosion standpoint. Hess asked the NDIC to consider requiring Select Water to implement a methodology to dilute the injectable material sufficiently to stay well below corrosion thresholds for common well casing and cementing materials. Additionally, upon written request, a manifest of all injected materials should be made available to any operator within permitted or producing wells within 1 mile of the Mackenzie well. From Select's point of view, absolutely. We have a complete methodology within our standard operating procedures for corrosion control. We use corrosion inhibitors. We ensure that most of the slurry is 90% water in the first place, right? We don't inject anything that is corrosive. We would be causing damage to our own equipment and pipeline and wellhead, let alone anybody else's, and we don't want to do that at all. So we have full methodology of corrosion inhibition during this process. The other part here was about the injected materials. Every single piece of material that goes in the well is manifested. That is available for everybody to see. We put our reports into the NDIC. We do monthly reports. We do quarterly reports. It's the same as our monitoring system. It is done monthly and quarterly, so anybody can see what is happening with those fractures and the material that goes in there. To the next one. The insufficient documentation of stress directions and intensities. There is insufficient documentation of the minimum and maximum horizontal stress directions and intensities in these formations to validate the claim that fractures generated by the Mackenzie well will create stress shadowing, allowing the fluid to create new fractures at new azimuths. Hess believes the initiated fractures will continue to grow, both vertically and in the regional fracture azimuth, eventually reaching into adjacent spacing units and impacting existing and future wells. Hess asked the NDIC to consider requiring select water to provide a high degree of confidence in the total extent of fractures and implement a monitoring system, such as temporarily spaced microseismic monitoring to detect fracture growth over time. When we do our applications and when we do our simulations, these are very high level simulations that we run for our fractures. So we know from our actual fracture simulations that we run how far our fracture growth is around our well bore. We know the extent of the fractures. We know the plane of the fractures. We've presented this to Hess on numerous accounts, numerous times, to show them exactly where our fractures will grow. We also implement a daily 24/7 monitoring system that allows us to monitor these fractures and know exactly what's happening to the waste while it is going in the ground. So yes, we will be have a monitoring system in place, and yes, this will allow us to monitor the fractures at all times. Do we want to ask any questions on these as I go through, or just read them all? Because there's one.
Continue going
Okay.
through, and then after that, the staff
Okay.
can ask more questions.
The next one was a warranty against negative impacts. Hess also asked the NDIC to consider requiring select water to warrant that the Mackenzie well will not have a negative impact on the drilling or production of any existing or future wells in the adjacent spacing units. We had originally addressed this to Hess back in January of this year, I believe. Was it December, was it? That far back. Just to say that, yes, we understand if there is damage caused that can be proven to be select, we will take the responsibility for that. We have no problem with that. The Indian Cara pressure concerns. Disposal in the Indian Cara is a known problem that is exaggerated in the Buffalo Wallow area. The overpressuring of the Indian Cara has proven to be challenging for operators in the general region to achieve adequate cement isolation over the injection intervals. Well designs have been adjusted to combat this, adding challenges in providing adequate cement isolation of the freshwater aquifers. Hess has worked diligently with the NDIC to remedy unsatisfactory cement jobs and continuously improve the design, but allowing slurry injection would only increase the risk of this issue. I'm not quite sure what the request is on that, but we make sure that we utilize consultant, Nessa Consulting, for our well design. We have no problem with ensuring that the cement jobs are done correctly. And I do not believe that slurry would be an issue to any near well bore. Would you, Brad?
No, and I would also add that as part of Terralog's, I guess, process control, cement bonding and proper cement mixtures is paramount to their design and operations.
There's also a question in there about the overpressurization of the Indian Cara disposal. The nearest saltwater disposal to us is over a mile away. We don't see any pressurization from that well that's going to cause us problem in the Indian Cara. From the Hess wells that are now, the production zone is over 4,000 feet below us and 2,600 feet to our south. We don't see any reason to have a problem with that at all. The effects of corrosive materials on casing. Again, the integrity of existing and future casing could be challenged due to exposure to corrosive materials, fluids, at an increasing pressure profile due to injection. It is not clear if H2S is a risk here, but if it is, that would expose any operator to hydrogen embrittlement on wells that were not designed against such load. In addition to the casing, the wellhead and surface equipment would be potentially at risk. Hess recommends that any disposal of slurry containing solids, chemicals, and radioactive materials be injected at formations deeper than any producing formation in the existing or adjacent spacing units. We don't have any corrosive materials. We don't have H2S in here. We would have dealt with it before it got to the point of slurification. We will profile all our waste. All our waste is 90% fluid and 10% material most of the time. It is not a high corrosive material that goes down there. I would also note on these, as I'm reading this, I'm just trying to explain as we get to them. I've only read this from yesterday. What Hess is recommending would be to inject into deeper formation. We looked at deeper formations, well, our geomechanical team did, and recognizing that at a deeper level, there are no confining layers like you get in the Indian Cara. The pressures to be used would be extreme. So we chose the Indian Cara because of the suitability of the confining layers as well as the ability for disposal. The proposed Mackenzie well risks damaging existing oil and gas wells and negatively impacting the future development of Hess's spacing units to the south, resulting in waste and harming the correlated rights to the mineral and working interest owners. I'm not aware of any planned or permitted wells that Hess have in place at this stage. The only two wells to our south, we have already mitigated to say that you are far enough away that we will not interfere with your well itself. The permit for the Mackenzie GNI 19 well as proposed should be denied. At a minimum, the NDIC should adequately address Hess's concerns and the recommendations set forth should be adopted. I don't think we have a problem with anything that is requested there, and we are in quite easily in line with most. Brandon, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, a lot of these things have already been, I think, addressed through our previous hearing, I guess, and submittals.
I would also like to note here that we have provided Hess with this data, technical data, for over 8 months now. We gave them all the data back in December, January of this year. And the technical review, they've had many opportunities to ask us. They have not asked us anything. So now we're at a stage where this comes the day beforehand to talk about things that could have been technically discussed and mitigated way before this.
I believe we initially reached out to them in August of last year, starting the correspondence on this.
Thank you.
In your testimony just now, where you were discussing fractures and fracture growth, you alluded to daily monitoring
Yes.
systems. Can you elaborate on exactly what that is?
Sure, it's done on a base of, we have a bottom hole pressure gauge in there. So the bottom hole pressure gauge allows us to have readings on surface and at the bottom hole at all times. So we know from the pressure readings exactly what is happening to our material down there. The simulations that we run and with the readings that we take will be fed back into the simulations to make sure we are in line with what we said in the first place. We know that our fracture growth will probably be no more than about 600 feet around the wellbore. That's the radius around the wellbore itself. So that's probably the extent of the fracture will grow. We believe that what we know from the simulation side that in that area is a good area for us to deposit the solid waste between the pores. That's what it's all about. So the monitoring side of it is 24/7. That feeds back to our geomechanics team, who then produce us a weekly, monthly, and quarterly results.
And I believe those readings are taken every approximately 2 seconds.
Yeah, sorry, yes. That goes along with the material that goes in there. So we all the parameters are checked before they actually go into the well as well.
Gary, when you were addressing the Indian Kara pressure concerns that Hess had listed, I believe what they were looking to have addressed here, at least my understanding from reading it anyway, is that they're concerned that your project is going to increase the pressure of the Indian Kara substantially in this area. Do you have a response for that?
From where we are, we know that we are going to put pressure into the Indian Kara to create the fractures. We know that, right? That is the whole point. The fracture extent will be 600 feet. We know that as well, based on the simulations we've run. From then onwards, it is really about standard SWD procedures where fluid is going to leak off. It is not going to increase the pressure around anywhere near that. Our simulations show, and this is one of the reasons where the initial application came from, the safety mark from this well for the pressure wave that comes from the from the leak-off fluid is 0.4 miles. That is why we discussed with Hess in the first place. Now, because we recognize that is when we extended it to the 0.5 miles, one, to make sure we were within the regulation side of it, and also to make sure that we had addressed that issue from day one. We know we don't want to get there. I cannot see the pressure getting that far out. It's a long way to get when you're talking about water at the end of the day.
And then this is outside of the response here. When you move that location 500 feet, Was there any change to the simulation? Did you have to rerun it?
That was we actually did run it and found there were no changes to the actual geomechanics itself. Very little. We addressed some of it in the actual supplemental here, but the geomechanics said there was no changes to the actual formation itself. It really didn't make a lot of difference. So
There was no real change to overburden or,
nothing at all.
and the frac pod just shifted?
Nope, the frac pod yet, and we had that in the supplemental. We show where the frac pod actually grew because of the fracture plane azimuth. We knew that went northeast to southwest, and our well was north with Hess to the south of us. So we knew the fracture plane itself, and we knew that didn't change. We knew the fracture pod didn't change at all. So basically, it was just moving 500 feet. It wasn't an ideal thing for us to do, because it took it outside the boundary of our perimeter of our actual location. But we have a landowner agreement there that said, okay, fair enough, that's what we'll do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you want to add anything to that?
I think you pretty much covered everything that I was going to mention.
Oh, just to verify, and I would assume the answer is no, but since you moved 500 feet, there were no new wells or additional information that came into your radius, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and I actually took everything away further, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I guess one other item that I would maybe throw on there too is that as part of the Terralogs processes, they're going to be looking for the formation, I guess, and I don't want to speak on their behalf, of course, and they can speak to it a lot better than I could, but the stresses on the formation would be, before another injection event, would need to be shown to be within acceptable limits, so that way you're not providing excessive stress onto the formation.
Correct.
Gary, going through the same bullets you just went through, on the first page, you talk about the injection pressure exceeds the 0.8 psi per foot limit. In a sandstone like the Indian Care Formation, this is just kind of in general terms, what rate and pressure would you have to pump into that sandstone to frack through the Mowry Shale?
We are on surface, will be roughly at 10 barrels per minute at 2,500 psi. That's the maximum. So by the time you add in the hydrostatic, we're probably talking about 4,500 psi by the time you get there. I think you probably had it back in there. You could look at it.
I'm trying to find it.
But that's the right. We believe that we'll be looking at somewhere around about 2,100 psi on surface from our pumps, and at 420 gallons a minute.
So what rates and pressures would you have to, above that, would you need to fracture through the Mowry Shale?
That might be a question for Terralog.
Yeah, I might have to get that from the Terralog side of it. My guess is based on what I know from the hydrostatic, it's about 4,500 psi.
Okay.
It may be less than that. I honestly have to look back on there.
That might have been in the initial application.
Probably, yeah.
The chemistry of the injected fluids, I mean, I haven't looked through this, but what waste are you injecting?
It's all oil and gas waste. And mainly, we're looking at the difference between taking, most of it will be salt water, so we've got an SWD at that place. We will also look at muds. We can do gels. We can do cement side of it. We can do T-norm waste as well, because it's a case of just breaking it down. The whole idea of slurry fracture injection is to, or grind and inject, whatever way you want to call it, is to make sure we're breaking down the material so it can be stored within the pore space within those fractures. That's the whole point of it. So we know that we can inject, we could inject, if we wanted to, probably up to 1,000 barrels of solid waste per day. I don't think we will. I think the average will be around 400 to 500 barrels of solid waste a day mixed into 10 to 15,000 barrels of fluid. The good part about that is that we can take a lot of waste that are usually, solidified and taken elsewhere.
And I'll just address this here. The Hess requests the commission consider requiring Select to share their reports with other operators. That's not something the commission, I don't think, it legally can do. And
Which section are you on there?
chemistry of injected fluids, it says they has to ask the NDIC to do these things.
Yeah, I agree, and maybe this is an appropriate time to also talk about warranty against negative impacts. I mean, there's no contractual relationship whatsoever between Hess Corporation and Select Water Group, so to suggest that the commission should somehow put some sort of warranty provision in the order is just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Then, when they're concerned about the stress directions and intensities,
You pull that ladder up.
I guess, when you do your monitoring, how do you know which direction the fractures are growing?
All the way the Terralog will do it will feed back the information that we're getting back into their simulations, right? Based on the azimuth of the fracture plane of that we know from the offset wells and data we've collected, we can tell that what direction it is going in. Can I be 100% sure? I couldn't do that unless Terralog give me that answer. But they will be the ones that look at this, and they continue to feed back the information into the simulation to make sure we are kept on track. I think that's in the application as well.
I'm looking for it here.
There is a big step to the monitoring process that we want to make sure we keep. And that's a very important part for us to understand what is happening in our wellbore at all times.
So are radioactive materials corrosive?
I don't know. I don't think, Brandon?
Based on my understanding, unless the material by itself would be corrosive as it is, the radioactivity won't increase or decrease the corrosivity.
Okay, thank you.
What's the approximate density of the fluid that's gonna be injected, and is there monitoring?
Usually around about anywhere between 10 to 12 pounds per gallon. So 1.1 point SG, 1.1, 1.2. It's not a heavy material because 90% is fluid. So it's really the solid material that goes in there will make up the actual weight of the actual fluid itself. So the slurry itself comprises of 90% fluid, 10% solid waste.
And then, are you guys monitoring that
Absolutely.
continuously?
The
Okay.
parameters on service, when it goes through the system that we put in place and all the injection equipment that goes on surface allows us to monitor the parameters before it goes anywhere near the pumps themselves. So we have a storage capacity on surface of about 2,500 barrels that allows that 2,500 barrels to know that it is viable for injection before it goes down there. So we do a lot of micron sizing, so we make sure we're in the right micron sizing, we make sure we're in the right weight, we make sure we're in the right viscosity to make sure we don't leave any solids in the wellbore. We also carry out our standard operating procedures will ensure that we flush the well before, so we have a post and pre-flush as well to ensure it's clear. So it's really a question of making sure that we have our material within the standard parameters as we go down that hole. We don't want to do it outside of that.
And then your rate that you said 10 barrels a minute?
Yeah.
What does that fluctuate often, a
No.
lot, or?
Because we use positive displacement pumps on this, well, we're going to use triplex pumps for this one. So the rate is determined by the actual piston action on the positive displacement pumps, right? So we can't change that. So once that pump starts, we will continue. What we're going to watch at all times is the pressure. The pressure reading is taken at the pumps, the pressure reading is taken from the wellhead, and the pressure reading is taken from the bottom hole pressure. We watch that like a hawk. It's very important to us to watch that. So if there are any fluctuations, we have standard operation procedures in place to ensure that we then carry out the necessary points from that. If we see a drop, why do we see a drop? Right, stop immediately. If we see an increase, what's the increase? Stop immediately.
Do you have a rough estimate of what that drop, or, what that would be that would?
Yeah, usually if it's within 100 to 150, 100 psi either side of what we start with the injection, but as Brandon was alluding to, we do ensure that we know what happened from the previous injection, so we know the pressure to start with. So once we do start injection, if we see a drop or an increase either side, the engineers will have the standard operating procedure to stop and then question two. We will then put the questions to see, why did we see that? What happened? Was it just a case that we banged up against something? Was it just a case that it was lighter material? You know, water's incompressible, right? So you're going to get higher pressure that way. Was that material? Was it a higher density material that was causing less pressure? We need to understand that as we put our stuff down there. That's why it's very important to us to have the monitoring in place and to look at the parameters of the fluid when we're doing it.
Thank you.
Okay, nothing further?
Mr. Garner, or Mr. Hearing Officer, how are you going to handle the letter? Maybe I could just make a point. I don't have any objection with respect to how Ashley utilized the letter, and basically this letter raised some questions. My client wants to answer the questions. I do have some difficulty with it being offered for the purposes of testimony from Hess as to concerns they have, because, I mean, there's no opportunity to cross-examine the individual who wrote this letter. So I guess in that respect, I would object to the letter in terms of it being offered as any evidence in this case. Once again, no objection to Ashley utilizing it to develop some questions for my client.
I'm going to note your objection. I'll allow the letter to be a part of the record, though, subject to that objection.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that concludes our hearing for case number 31153.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Now's probably a good time to take an hour break for lunch. We'll go off the record. Whoop.
I don't know that there's much left, Dave, is there?
Decent chunk.
Or do you have some things that I'm not involved in?
I don't know. We are back on the record. We are not going to take a break for lunch. We're going to push through the remainder of the docket. We'll begin with case number 29868, application of Spotted Hawk Development LLC for an order amending the field rules for the Van Hook, Bakken, Poole, McLean, and Dunn Counties, North Dakota, so as to create and establish an overlapping 35, 20-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and north half of Section 21, Township 150 North, Range 91 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 8 horizontal wells on said proposed overlapping 35, 20-acre spacing unit and such other and further release as appropriate. This case has been continued to June of 2025 hearings. That concludes our hearing for case number 29868. Case number 30714, on a motion of the commission to consider the proper spacing for the development of the Bar Butte, Bakken, Poole, Williams County, North Dakota, redefine the limits of the field, and enact such special field rules as may be necessary. All interested parties, please come forward.
Mr. Examiner, Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck. I believe earlier this week we filed a request to continue, and perhaps even last week. But we will hear the case next month. We've requested it be continued until the regularly scheduled September hearings. At least that's my understanding, Mr. Bohr. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, this case, there's been a little bit of confusion as to how this should proceed, but there are producing wells in the Bar Butte, Bakken Pool, and it is appropriate at this time to go proceed with the proper spacing hearing.
Unless, I don't know, perhaps there's an issue with advertising. Can we still get it advertised for the September hearing, Sarah? Or is that an issue? If Oh, that's not how but that's fine with me. Well, WPX was continued last month, and it's on here as it's advertised, but I don't want to dispute that with you, Sarah,
Yeah,
but
let's not
at
have
any
that
rate, we'll be here
conversation on the
next month to hear the case, so. I like the rule, though.
Okay, so this case has been continued to the September hearings. That concludes our hearing for case number 30714. Case number 30854, application of WPX Energy Williston LLC for an order for the Hart Butte Bakken Pool and/or Wolf Bay Bakken Pool, Dunn County, North Dakota, to create and establish an overlapping 2880-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 29, 30, 31, and 32, and the west half of sections 28 and 33, Township 147 North, Range 92 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 17 wells on said proposed overlapping 2880-acre spacing unit, and such further relief is appropriate. This case has been dismissed. That concludes our hearing for case number 30854. Case number 30921, in the matter of the petition for a risk penalty of SOGC Inc., requesting an order authorizing the recovery of a risk penalty from certain non-participating owners as provided by NDCC 380808, and the drilling and completing of the Porcupine 419H well located in a spacing unit described as sections 18 and 19, Township 146 North, Range 97 West, Little Knife Bakken Pool, Dunn County, North Dakota, and such other relief as appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in this case 30921 on behalf of SOGC Inc. At this time, we'd respectfully request that 30921, 30922, and 30923 be combined and consolidated for purposes of hearing.
Any objection from the commission?
No.
Request is granted.
You want to read those captions, or?
I will.
Okay.
So I will now read in the remaining cases that are being consolidated with case number 30921. Case number 30922, in the matter of the petition for a risk penalty of SOGC Inc., requesting an order authorizing the recovery of a risk penalty from certain non-participating owners as provided by NDCC 380808, and the drilling and completing of the Porcupine 5-19 well located in a space unit described as sections 18 and 19, Township 146 North, Range 97 West, Little Knife Bakken Pool, Dunn County, North Dakota, and such other relief as is appropriate. And case number 30923, in the matter of the petition for a risk penalty of SOGC Inc., requesting an order authorizing the recovery of a risk penalty from certain non-participating owners as provided by NDCC 380808, and the drilling and completing of the Porcupine 6-19H well located in a space unit described as sections 18 and 19, Township 146 North, Range 97 West, Little Knife Bakken Pool, Dunn County, North Dakota, and such other relief as is appropriate. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in these consolidated matters on behalf of SOGC Inc. Shall I explain this? These applications were brought before the commission with the request that the commission impose a risk penalty against certain owners who have either refused or neglected to respond to an election to participate. And what we're requesting, well, let me back up. 430203 provides that these are general rules for the Industrial Commission, but there's a provision in Chapter 430203 that indicates that they are general rules and the Commission can grant exceptions. One of the provisions in 430203 is 430203 88.1. That provision of the code allows for the Commission to basically handle cases that are sort of routine in matter, and they can be handled with affidavits. What we're requesting is that these three cases, while they're not specifically listed under 43020388.1, that the commission grant an exception to that rule under 430203, I believe, 01, and allow these three cases to be heard under that procedure. If the commission determines that that is inappropriate, I think it would be helpful not only to my clients, but other oil and gas operators who frequently make applications for risk penalties to have some guidance on how the commission wants to handle these cases. If the commission determines you have to have a witness, we hope that isn't the case, but if that's what the commission decides, we'll certainly honor that request. But I think some guidance would be helpful for both the commission and future applicants.
I'll give the commission an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, I agree with Lawrence. There should be some guidance out there. These cases, it's not unusual for these cases where there's no opposition, and it would be a waste of resources on probably both parties, commission and the applicant, to have to provide testimony, but I would certainly believe that testimony entered through the course of an affidavit would be appropriate, but we will take that under advisement.
Perhaps one other issue is that maybe the next rulemaking, we should consider adding risk penalties to 88.1, and that might help resolve this issue in the future.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that if there could be a requirement that if there's no known opposition, it can be put in under 88.1, something like that. I wouldn't disagree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, nothing further? That concludes our hearings for case number 30921, case number 30922, case number 30923. Case number 31154. Application of Sustainable Projects Group, Inc. for an order pursuant to NDAC 33020351 at SEC, authorizing the construction of a treating plant to be located in the southeast quarter of Section 21, Township 149 North, Range 98 West, Mackenzie County, North Dakota, and such as relief as is appropriate. This case has been continued. Concludes the hearing for case number 31154. Case number 31155, on a motion of the commission to consider rescinding order number 30954, entered in case number 28221, which was an application of WM of North Dakota Energy Disposal Solutions LLC for an order authorizing the drilling of a saltwater disposal well to be utilized for fracture injection into the Dakota Group in the Blue Buttes number 1 well, northeast quarter of Section 35, Township 151 North, Range 96 West, Blue Buttes Field, Mackenzie County, North Dakota, pursuant to NDAC Chapter 430205 and such other relief as is appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
I would like to note that this case and the remaining WM of North Dakota Energy cases on the docket are all part of a related project that involved 2 slurry fracture injection wells and a treating plant. And the commission has received a request from WM of North Dakota to no longer pursue that project. So that's just what is going on with these. But for this case, I would ask that case number 28221 be incorporated into this record.
Request granted. Do you want me to call each of the cases individually so you can incorporate?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. That concludes our hearing for case number, well, I'll note that no one else appeared in this case. That concludes our hearing for case number 31156. Case number 31157. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. So previously that concluded our hearing for case number 31155. We're now calling 31156 on a motion of the commission to consider rescinding order number 30675 entered in case number 28222, which was a motion of the commission to consider the amount of bond to be required of WM of the North Dakota Energy Disposal Solutions LLC for the Blue Buttes number 1 well to be drilled in the northeast quarter of Section 35, Township 151 North, Range 96 West, Blue Buttes Field, McKenzie County, North Dakota, to be utilized for fracture injection into the Dakota Group pursuant to NDAC 43020315 and such other relief as is appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
I would request that the record for case number 28222 be incorporated into this record.
Request is granted. I will note that no other parties appeared in this case. That concludes our hearing for case number 31156. Case number 31157. On a motion of the commission to consider rescinding order number 30955, entered in case number 28223, which was an application of WM of North Dakota Energy Disposal Solutions LLC for an order authorizing the drilling of a saltwater disposal well to be utilized for fracture injection into the Dakota Group in the Blue Buttes number 2 well, southwest northeast quarter of Section 35, Township 151 North, Range 96 West, Blue Buttes Field, McKenzie County, North Dakota, pursuant to NDAC Chapter 430205, and such of the relief as is appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
I would request that case number 28223 be incorporated into this record.
Request is granted. I'll note that no other parties appeared for this case. That concludes our hearing for case number 31157. Case number 31158. On a motion of the commission to consider rescinding order number 30677, entered in case number 28224, which was a motion of the commission to consider the amount of bond to be required of WM of North Dakota Energy Disposal Solutions LLC for the Blue Buttes number 2 well to be drilled in the southwest northeast quarter of Section 35, Township 151 North, Range 96 West, Blue Buttes Field, McKenzie County, North Dakota, to be utilized for fracture injection into the Dakota Group pursuant to NDAC 43020315 and such other relief as is appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
I would request that case number 28224 be incorporated into this record.
Request granted. I'll note that no other parties appeared for this case. That concludes our hearing on case number 31158. Case number 31159, on a motion of the commission to consider rescinding order number 30953, entered in case number 28220, which was an application of WM of North Dakota Energy Disposal Solutions LLC for an order pursuant to NDAC Section 43020351 at SEC, authorizing the construction of a treating plant to be located in the southeast quarter of Section 35, Township 151 North, Range 96 West, McKenzie County, North Dakota, and such other relief as is appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
I would request that case number 28220 be incorporated into this record.
Request is granted. I note that no other parties appeared for this case. That concludes our hearing for case number 31159, and that concludes our hearings for the day.